Hello ladies and gentlemen. In this video, I'm going to show you how to connect a Google Sheet to your app so you can load in data for use within one of the apps that you've created. In this example, you can see I've created a student data app, and on the first screen there's a series of images which shows you what the student looks like and then the student's name. And I can click on the student and view information about that student. You can see I have an image of the student, and I've got some information about them, likes and dislikes, and then information about their recent grades. And you could see that when this screen first appeared, the information wasn't there and it loaded in from the spreadsheet that it's reading from. So these aren't just text that I've put on a screen. This information is coming from an actual spreadsheet. When I click on the Go Back button, it takes me back to the start screen and I can click to view another student. So how did I make this and get it working? Well, the first thing I needed to do was to create a spreadsheet, and I use Google Sheets for this. So if we go to my Google Drive, you can see I have a folder called Connecting to a Database, and that database is my spreadsheet. And here I've got a spreadsheet called Thunkable Student Data. If I open that file up, you can see I have a spreadsheet with 7 columns. The first header says student, and this is where I list all of the students' names. And then I have the header which says photo, and this gives a link to all of the different images of the students. Now you can see that some of these links are Google Drive links, while the others use a different image storage website called Cloudinary. And I'm going to show you how to link your images using both of these, because one is really straightforward and another one requires you to edit the links, which can be a little bit of a pain. So I'm going to show you how to use both of those. And then we've got the grade level information, the score they got on a recent assessment, the results, so whether that was a pass or fail, and then just some data about the students' likes and dislikes. In my Google Drive, I also have a folder called Student Photos. And when I go into that folder, you can see all of the images I have of the students. So how do I get all of this information into my Thunkable app? Well, the first thing we're going to do is go to Thunkable. And I'm going to stop running this app. And I will go back to the projects window. And you can see here, lesson 5, connecting to a spreadsheet. But because I want to show you how to do this from scratch, we're going to hit the Create New Project button. Now I'm going to give it a project name. So I'm going to call it Connecting to a Spreadsheet Example. And give it a category, so I will choose education. And then I'll check public so that I could share this link with you if I wanted, so you could see the project. Make sure that use drag and drop builder. There's a little checkbox with a check mark in it, and then hit create. And now we can start to create our app. So the first thing I need to do is connect this Thunkable app to my spreadsheet. To do that, if you look on the far left-hand side, you can see there are 3, it looks like coins stacked on top of one another. And this is the data icon. If you click on this, you'll see data sources. And if you click on the plus icon, you can see that I already have some spreadsheets loaded in. So what I'm going to do is just hit Create New, and then click Google Sheets. And then select a sheet. And I can go to my Google Drive, and I'm going to switch it to List View. And there's the spreadsheet that I want to use, Thunkable Student Data. So if I click on that, and then hit select, and it will say which row are your column headers in. That's where we have the student grade, so the description of each column in the spreadsheet, and that is in row number 1 here. So we're going to put 1 there, and then which is the first row containing data? Let's look at the spreadsheet. The first row containing data is row 2. So I'll make sure 2 is in that box. And then I can click create because that's ready. And you can see there, data source successfully added to the project. And under data sources, we can see Thunkable student data. Now, if you ever make a change to your spreadsheet, you can go back to data, click on the spreadsheet title, and you can see the spreadsheet that's loaded in here, and you can click sync with source. And you'll need to do this if you ever change the data in the spreadsheet so that your app will be updated. And you can just click on the little X to close that window. So how did I create the menu? Well, that's the next step. So if you click on the designer icon, and that's again in the very top left of the screen, you can go down to data viewer list or data viewer grid. I want to show my options in list format. So I'm going to click on that and drag it onto my screen. Now I'm going to resize it so it's nice and large. And then we can see that the data viewer list options are in the far right. Under data source, I'm going to pick the Thunkable student data spreadsheet. And then I'm going to choose how the menu will appear. So we can have just the image and a title, or an image, title, and subtitle, and the other options that we have here. So I'm just going to go for the image, and I want the student's name. So I'll have just the image and title. So I'll choose that option. And now we can see that below that, it's given me some options to choose from. So it's saying, where do you want the picture to come from? So if I click on this box, I want the picture to come from the photo column in my spreadsheet. So if I choose that, you'll see that the images have loaded in. And now the text where it says title, I want this to show student's name. So I'm going to choose the student name from the spreadsheet. So when I click that, it refreshes, and now we have all of the images and the students' names in the list. If I change one of the students' names, so if I go to my spreadsheet and I change Allen, J. Allen, to, let's say, Smith, I can go back to Thunkable, go to data, click on the student data again and sync with source, close that window, and then just choose the picture again. So I'll just switch to score for a moment to wipe those, and then back to photo. And you can see that it's refreshed. There we go, J. Smith. And then if I realize I've made a mistake, I can simply go back, change that back to the way it was, go back into Thunkable and do the same thing. And then just change one of these options. And there we go, it's back to J. Allen. So that's back to the way it was now. So that's how you set up the menu by connecting to a spreadsheet. The next step is to be able to click on one of the student names and view data about that student. So to do that, I'm going to add another screen. Add an additional screen by going to the top of the Thunkable window and clicking on the plus icon next to screen 1. Now I've got a second screen, screen 2, and I'm going to change the name of that screen in the far right-hand side of the development window. So I'm going to change screen 2 to Mr. Gill Data. And if I just click on the background or press enter, you can see that now the screen is called Mr. Gill Data. I'm also going to rename screen 1. So I'm going to change that by clicking on it, and I'm going to call that Start Page. And then press enter. And you can see now I've got 2 pages, Start Page and Mr. Gill Data. So now I'm going to click on the designer icon again. So I'm in the designer view, and I'm going to click on the image option and drag an image onto the screen, and I'll resize that. And where it says picture, no file source, I'm going to upload a file. And I'm going to go to my folder on my computer where I have images stored. There's the image I want. I'm going to open that. That's added. And now I can just adjust it so it's not quite as stretched as it was before. So now I want some information on this page, and I want to read it from the spreadsheet. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a label, and I'm going to add the text here, name. And I'm also going to rename the label itself. So I'm going to call it label name. And press enter. And now you can see in the component tree for the page Mr. Gill Data, I have an image and the label name. And I'm going to make that label a little bit smaller. There we go. And now I'm going to take another label and I'm going to place it next to it and just adjust the positioning of that. I'm going to call this label label dash name data, because this is where the data is going to appear. So I'm calling these a sensible name so I know what each one is and what it does. So name data. And I'm just going to delete the text in there so it doesn't say label anymore. So you can see right now it just says empty string. And then I'm going to take another label. I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to call this one grade. So label dash grade, or let's say score. And I will put score to be shown in the text box. There we go. I have another label here. I'm going to resize this one. And I'll rename that one label score data, because this is where the data from the spreadsheet will appear. And then I'll do this one more time for the result, so whether they passed or failed. So I'll call this one label result, and add the text result, and then just resize that label, and then add another label, resize that, and I'll call this one label result data, because this is where the data from the spreadsheet will come, and I'll delete the text that's shown on that label. And I need to delete it for that one as well by just clicking and deleting the information. Right. So now you can see I have an image. I've got 3 labels with text in them and 3 empty labels where I'm going to display data. So now the only thing we need to do is connect it to the spreadsheet so that information is visible on this page. So before I get this page working, I'll go back to the start page and I will connect the student names to the corresponding pages. So I want to connect G. Gill here to the page about that student. So first thing I need to do is go to blocks and then click on Data Viewer List 1. I'm going to drag in when due. So when data viewer list 1 item click and row ID, so that's row ID 1, do, go to control and select navigate to, and we're going to navigate to the Mr. Gill data page. With that set up, I can now go to the Mr. Gill data page and add the blocks to make this page work. So I'll start by, again, clicking on Mr. Gill data and saying when Mr. Gill data opens, I'm going to change the information that's visible on the page. So I'll click on the label name data and I'm going to say set label name data's text to and drag that in there. And now I'm going to scroll down on the far left hand side and find data sources, click on that and drag in get value from Thunkable student data. I'm going to drag that in here. And now in the name data from sheet 1, I want to display the student's name, so I'll choose student. Change row ID to row 2. So put 2 in here. And now I can duplicate this and change the next one. So the next one was score data, text, change that from Thunkable student data in sheet 1, that's going to be the score. Again, from row ID, it's in row 2, there we go, score, which would be a 5. And then duplicate this one more time and change score to result. And again, row ID is 2. And then finally, I'm going to go back to the design and I will add a button at the bottom of the page. And I'll change the text on that button to back to go back to the start page. I'll go back into blocks. I'll scroll up to the top left of the window in the components window, and where it says button 1, I'll say when button 1 is clicked, do, go to control, navigate to start page. And now we're ready. So if I click on the start page here, go to design so we can see it, and then web preview to run it. Here's my app running. The images load in, and now I can click on GGill, and you can see that the information loads in, but the information is incorrect. It says name J. Lee, score pass. So we know that the name is incorrect. So let's go out of the preview mode, go back to the blocks, click on Mr. Gill data, and it's choosing, if we look at the spreadsheet, it should have been row 2, but row 2 is actually the first row with actual student data in. So row 2 should actually be row 1 in Thunkable. So if I change row 1 here, here, and here, and I've got label score data there, that should be result data, so we've got an error there as well. And now I can run the page, and now we've got the correct name, the score, and the pass. And then I click on back, it'll take me to the start page. I can click on the name and it will switch me back to the correct page. and I have my app up and running. So the only thing left to cover is making sure that on the start page your images display properly. When you go to Google Drive and you take a link, so if I take the ggil.jpg, share, copy link, and I paste that into my spreadsheet, if I go back to the design, go to data, and sync that data, go back to the main page, you can see that the ggil image has disappeared. Now that's because Google Drive gives links that don't work with Thunkable. You have to edit the links slightly. Now this is where it becomes a little bit of a pain. So if we go to the spreadsheet again and click on the link, and in the bar at the top, we're going to need to make some edits here. So from the /view, so the /view right to the end of the link, you need to delete that. So /view and onward, that needs to be deleted. And if you go into the link where it says file/d/, we have to get rid of file/d/. So we need to delete that. So where it says google.com/, I need to type UC ID equals. UC ID equals. You have to edit the link so that Thunkable can access the link correctly. If you don't make these changes, the image won't load in your app. So now I can go back to Thunkable. I can sync with the data source again, close that, go back to the designer, click on data viewer list, and it refreshes. And if it doesn't refresh, just change one of these options and then switch it back, and it will load in correctly if it fails to refresh. And that's how you use Google Drive images. If you don't want to edit the links, if that's just too much hassle, you can create an account on Cloudinary. So to do that, if you click login with Google, and use your school account. I'm going to use a personal account, but you should use your school account. You'll be given some options when you try to log in. You want to select Manage Images and Videos, Customize Images and Videos, and then Visual UI without coding. So Nexus and then in brackets DAM. So click that. And scroll down and say, let's start. Click Let's Get Started. Click Next, Next, Finish, until you see the Media Library window, and then go to Folders, and that's at the top of the window. Now where you see Home, click on Create a Folder and give this whatever name you'd like. So I'm going to call this Student Photos. And click Save. Now you can click on the student photos, right click it and go to Open. And what you can do then is find wherever your photos are saved on your computer. So not your Google Drive, but your actual computer. And you're going to select all of the images and drag them into the folder in Cloudinary. So these are all of my images. So what you need to do When this window pops up, just hit skip. And you're looking back at the media library window with all of your images. You might see them in the mosaic view. I don't like using this, so if you click on view and hit list, and then what you can do is if you right click on a image name and go to share and then go to copy URL. So not public link, not invite, copy URL. And what you can do then is go to your spreadsheet, and instead of using a Google Drive link, you can paste in the Cloudinary link instead. Then go back to Thunkable, go back to data, click on the spreadsheet name, sync with source, close that window, go back to the designer, and either click on one of the components to refresh. If that still doesn't work, just like before, on the far right hand side, just switch to one of the other options and then choose the correct one, and it refreshes, and you can see there, GGIL, the image has appeared. And you'll notice that the images, when you use Cloudinary, actually load in faster. So this is probably the smarter option, but it depends on which one you prefer to use. If you just want to stick with Google Drive, you're going to need to edit the links. If you want to use Cloudinary, you'll have to create an account. So choose the one that works best for you. And that's it. That's how you create your app. So I've got my data viewer list. When I run the app, I can view my menu. I can click on a student, and then the student data appears, and you can see the information loads in from the spreadsheet. I can click on my back button and it returns back to the menu. And that's how you connect to a spreadsheet in Thunkable.